if your tires are really clean, then they're actually gonna look a lot like this. All right, so there's no brown dirt and road grime on it. So this is like the perfect candidate to apply your dressing. So for those so-called magic quick cleaners, detailers, or whatever you want to call it, it really doesn't exist in my opinion. I think that you have to use a process as well as the correct products in order to achieve some pretty solid results. Good morning, gonna wash the R32 today. It's perfect weather, but before I do that, I'm gonna go ahead and clean up the garage because I've accumulated quite a bit of clutter after a kid's birthday party and getting the 32 roadworthy. All right, garage is straightened up, and now I'm gonna get ready to wash the I'm gonna get ready to wash the R32, and we'll take a look at its current status. It shouldn't be too bad. Overall, the car just accumulated a lot of dust from sitting, so we're just gonna give it a quick wash. I'm gonna kind of show you how I go through that process. From afar, it doesn't look too bad, but let's take a closer look. Got some dust up in the grill. Windshield's looking pretty terrible. Windows are filthy. Car is super dusty. Overall, not too bad, but like I said, we're gonna go ahead and knock this dust off. I'll show you the process that I kind of go through when I wash my cars, and a quick look at the products that I use. One quick note I forgot to mention, another important aspect about washing your car is pretty much protecting its finishes, right? Whether it's the paint, the rubber, vinyl, the different materials pretty much overall in the car. And as you can see on the rear wheel, there was a little bit of corrosion there, and that's pretty much from the brake dust. So if you didn't know, the brake dust is fairly corrosive and it will start eating away at your wheels finish. So yes, car washing makes your car look great, but you also got to consider the aspect of protecting its finishes. So just keep that in mind. All right, let's get started with how I prepare my car washes. First thing I'm gonna do is set up the pressure washer. That's probably not good for that. It's a lot harder to do with one hand. The pressure washer is all hooked up. I got the lamps hooked up to the hose, I got it plugged in, and I got the water source coming from the regular garden hose. So now all I'm going to do is do a little test. I'm going to throw on this 40-degree nozzle. All right, nozzle's on. I think we're good to go. All right, so it is pressurized. Looks like we're good. Cool. The one thing that I'm gonna bring you guys up to speed on is that I actually did do some paint correction work on the hood. Coated it with the Chemical Guys Butter Wet Wax. Now, this is the first time that I've used this product, and so I'm not too sure on the durability, but I will say this, is that the application was absolutely easy. All right, so I just applied it, quick little thin coat, and then I wiped it off. So I'm actually gonna show you is how well the beading of the water is on the hood. So let's take a look. Not bad. I mean, you see little beads of water, and it looks like it's staying on top of the surface by sticking to it. So not bad. Okay, next thing that we're gonna do is get our buckets ready that I use for the wheels and tires, and the buckets that I use for paint. In order to reduce the cross-contamination of the extremely dirty parts of the car, I have 3 separate buckets, all with the Chemical Guys version of the grit guard. All right, so it's these little inserts. If you don't know what this is for, it's to reduce the particles that you pull off of your car going back onto your washing media, whether it's a brush like these, whoops, or rags, sponges, whatever y'all are using. So yeah, use these if you're not already. Hashtag 3 bucket method. All right, so I'm gonna show you what I got inside my wheel slash tire slash exhaust slash engine bay bucket. Got an assortment of brushes. I typically don't like to put this on the ground, so you know what? I'm gonna show you up on the toolbox here. Easy detail brush, Wheel Woolly, a Swiss brush, Chemical Guys tire brush. Now I'm gonna tell you this, for most of these types of brushes, right, that are hard bristle, I highly recommend that you do not use it. And the reason being is primarily because when you're using these hard bristles, you're actually massaging the dirt and road grime into the tire or whatever it is that you're scrubbing. So highly suggest you do not use this, and instead, right, so this is not in my setup anymore. Highly recommend you use something like this, right? A lot softer, and something of this size kind of covers a lot more than what that smaller brush does. So there you go. And another set of Wheel Woolies, right? So it's a little assortment to kind of get into different crevices, cracks, you know. Bucket number 1, we're gonna go ahead and add our water, and we're going to put a little bit of car soap in it, just so that we have some cleaning power as well as some lubrication for washing the wheels and tires. Now, this is a cheap little car wash that you could, find at your local auto parts store. So I'm just gonna go ahead and throw this into the bucket. Boom. That should be enough. Put you off to the side in case we need some more. And now we're gonna fill up this bucket with some water. Now typically what I like to do is fill it up with the garden hose, but since this is already hooked up, we'll go ahead and use it. Just kidding, we're gonna use the garden hose. This is not the results that I was expecting. We have soap and water in our wheel and tire bucket. So now I'm just gonna drop my brushes into that and we'll set it aside. Next, we're going to get our paint bucket set up. So that's actually going to be the 2 bucket method. Many of y'all may have heard. For those that don't know, it's going to be one bucket will be full of water, and the other bucket is going to be filled with water and the soap of your choice. So today we're going to be using the new car soap that we got, which is the Honeydew Snow Foam from Chemical Guys. This stuff right here. Curious to see how this smells. And it smells like honeydew. So blue insert for my wash bucket and red insert for my soap. Now for the actual media that I use is just this little mitt from Chemical Guys. I kind of like sponges better, but this is what was available at the time, so I'm currently using it. And then this black one, I kind of use it for the lower parts of the car, the dirtier parts of the car, just so that I'm not potentially taking the stuff from the bottom of the car and putting it onto the paint and potentially ruining the finish. So let's go ahead and set up these 2 buckets. Throw the mitt in the car wash bucket. the recommended amount for this bucket is 1 ounce, but we'll just, there you go. Put about that much. No soap in there, just water. Not gonna lie, this honeydew snow foam smells pretty delicious. Tripod styles. Pro tip, throw your wash mitt down into the bucket, put your soap in, or put your soap on top of it, and then give it a little bit of pressure so that it aerates like that. We're almost ready to start the car wash process, but before I do that, I need to get the foam cannon ready. So all that consists of is putting about 1 ounce of the honeydew car wash snow foam, and then fill the rest of the bucket up with water. So it'll look a little something like this. I don't know how well this is gonna work. You know what? Psych. Got me a little funnel. I grabbed some water from inside the house. Look a little something like that. Cool, so now that's ready. And I forgot we have one more thing to do, and that's to add or get a little bit more cleaning power for the wheels, tires, and any other like spots that are on the car. What I have for that is an all-purpose cleaner, and I put it into a nice little spray bottle because it makes application really easy. Gonna get some all-purpose cleaner into my spray bottle. This back in. Give it a couple quick pumps, get some pressure. I think we're ready. All right, recap. Soap and water bucket with the grit guard. Got the rinse bucket, wheel and tire bucket. Got the pressure washer hooked up. Got the foamer set up and the all-purpose cleaner and the spray bottle. I'm gonna start with the wheels and tires first because I don't want to get any products or water on the paint while I'm working on the wheels and tires. So we start there, and then once we're finished with that, we'll move on to the paint. So let's jump into it. All right, I'm gonna walk y'all through the first one. So what I'm gonna do is hit up the wheel wells first, then the tire, and then I'm gonna hit up the wheel barrels and then the face of the wheel. And by doing that, you're kind of going from top to bottom, and that way we could reduce the amount of dirt that we're pushing around after we've already cleaned the section. So I'm gonna show you the first one, and then we're gonna blast through the rest of the wheels. That way I'm not messing around and leaving product on the wheels and tires. Now I call that one pass in the wheel well, so I'm going to take this brush and I'm going to dip it back in the bucket to kind of clean it off, and then we'll move on to the tire. Like I mentioned earlier, soft bristle. And onto the wheel barrel. Now what's going to determine what brushes I use is pretty much based on the wheel, tire, brake setup. If you can't reach into a certain area, well, use a different brush. from the barrels, I'm going to try and hit up the face of the wheel, getting in between the spokes. Lug nuts. And then we'll go once over on the face as well as the tire. Now we're done, so let's just go ahead and rinse it off. Alright, and that's pretty much the process that I use. Damn, there is a lot of water on this lens. Let's clean this up real quick. Alright, hopefully I got all the water off of the lens, but this is the result. Fairly quick and easy. Alright, so that addressed the wheel wells, tires, the barrel of the wheel, calipers, and the face of the wheel. So I'm gonna go ahead and move on to the rest of the wheels, and then we'll move on to the paint. Alright, so that concludes the wheel and tires. Let's take a look at our work. Looking pretty good. Obviously, it's still wet, so of course it's gonna look pretty good. Looking a lot better. So we still got a little bit of dirt right there. Alright, so as you can see, it's still embedded in the tire, and if you try and put some tire dressing on top of that, it's not going to be the best application for you, so probably hit that up a little bit more. This side looking pretty good. It's inevitable, right? So you are definitely going to miss some spots, but when it comes time to drying or applying your dressing, kind of like in the final stages, that's when you can go ahead and address those spots that you missed. Wheels and tires are done. Now we're going to move on to the body, but before we start, I'm going to show you a couple things that will boost up your attention to detail. First, go ahead and bring up your windshield wipers. If you have front and rear, take care of that. And two, Alright, this area gets dirty as well, so make sure you take care of that. No rear windshield wiper, deleted. First step that I'm going to do is rinse the car with the pressure washer, and then that's so that we can knock down the heavy dust first, and then we're going to foam it to get any leftover residue to minimize the potential scratching when I start actually washing the car with the mitt. So let's get into that. So the rinse portion is done. Now I'm going to move on to the funnest part, in my opinion, which is foaming the car. Straight up messed up. My DSLR is full, so we're gonna switch over to the GoPro. But damn, this show was pretty fun. This setup lays down quite a bit of foam, as you can see. So what I'm gonna do at this point in time is I'm just gonna let it sit for a little bit longer. I know that the sun is probably going to bake it and dry it pretty quickly, but that's kind of the process. I want it to lift up the dirt, and then we'll use the mitt and we'll go ahead and start washing the car. The foam's been sitting for a couple minutes now, and so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the pressure washer and I'm going to hose down the foam. Car is rinsed off. It's looking pretty good, but we could definitely do better, and that's where we're going to get into the next phase, and that's just washing. So for example, after all that foam and pressure washing, we still have residue on the wing. 2-bucket method. Again, we have one rinse bucket and one bucket with the soap and mitt. Every time we wash the car or do a couple passes on the car, we're going to dunk it into the rinse bucket so that we clean off as much particles as we can. I'm going to show you a couple passes, and then I'm going to put this down. The way I wash the car is I start from the top all the way to the bottom, and then when it comes down to the side skirt, what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of stop right around here. Alright, so for this area and maybe this area, I'm going to switch over to a different mitt so that I am not contaminating the mitt that I use on the rest of the car. Let's get to it. Alright, here we go. Take my mitt, starting from the top. Try and hit up these straight lines, flip it, boom. That's one pass right there. Then we're going to take it, dunk it into our rinse bucket, and we repeat the process. Now, one pro tip: if you happen to wear rings, watches, or belts, or actually anything that will potentially scratch the car's finish, go ahead and remove that before you start. I'm gonna sit you down so I can get to work. Alright, so just completed most of the body work. Now we're going to focus on the lower half, but before we do, we're going to switch over mitts to that black one that I showed you in the beginning. That way we can get the lower half. And remember, the reason why we're doing that is so that we don't contaminate the primary wash media with the lower half of the car. So we're going to go ahead and use this mitt. Same process, but for the lower half. I'm just going to speed through getting the lower portion of the car. As you can probably see, I jumped down to the one bucket, but I really don't care too much because this is the lower half of the car. We did it. The car is washed. Now we got to rinse it off, get all the soap and any other residue left over, and then we'll get ready to dry it. Car's in the garage. You can start drying this bad boy. Onto the drying towels. This is my drying towel little bin. Got a couple different ones in here. So we got the waffle weave. Picked this up from Detailer's Domain a while back. All right, very thin, low ply. And then I got this one from Chemical Guys. I'm not too sure what it's called or whatever, but I will say this thing is massive and it absorbs a lot of water. Highly recommend it. But yeah, let's get to it. Pro tip, you typically don't want to throw a dry towel on your car's finish. So what I like to do is either put some detail spray on it, or you could wet down the towel just a little bit, just so that it's not going on dry. So I have the clay luber from Chemical Guys. Gonna go ahead and give it a couple hits of that. Turn it around. Same thing, boom. And you could actually spray that onto the car's finish if you want as you're going, but I'm not gonna do that. I just wanna get this car done. Got a leaf on the car, right? You do not want to put a towel over that and then drag that across the paint. Essentially what you're gonna turn your towel into, or that little thing, is a piece of sandpaper. So I'm trying to take that off, get it off the car's finish, and let's get to it. So I was able to dry majority of the car with just one towel. A lot of it really evaporated. So next step to get even more of the water out is to get a leaf blower or air compressor. Some of you may think that using an air compressor or leaf blower is a bit overkill to dry the car, but you got to remember when it comes to the seals around the glass, just pretty much around the car, that water and dirt is gonna break it down and it's going to reduce its effectiveness. And eventually, it'll dry out and crack, as shown here. So right there, right? So that's why protection on the, you know, rubber, vinyl, whatever trim you got, is pretty important. All right, so not only to make it look good, but to prevent it from breaking down as such. So a little bit of maintenance goes a long way. All right, let's go ahead and grab my leaf blower and extension cord. It looks dry, right? However, there's still a lot of water trapped in the lines of the body. The car is washed, dried, and let's go ahead and take a look at the results from our work. I hope y'all enjoyed the video and learned something new. In my next video, I'll be reviewing my new car. And as always, be sure to comment, like, and subscribe if you're not already. Peace.